Welcome to the Upreneur podcast for the University of Entrepreneurs. I am your host, Jeremy Straub.
Hi, we are here with David Rosen, CEO and founder of Kira Labs. This is one of our segments during the COVID-19 pandemic and talking about businesses that have done a great job pivoting and figuring out how to still succeed in a market like this. David, thanks for joining us. Happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. Great to be here.
So first, before we get jumping in and talking a little bit about some of the pivoting you've done, can you just let us know how the family's doing? I know you got a rather large family. Everybody together?
Yeah, no, gratefully everyone's together. Had to change a few trip plans and things like that, like everybody else. But no, gratefully everybody's well. With a little bit stir crazy quarantined. I think what are we up to? Like 3 or 4 weeks with self-quarantine, basically. So it's getting to the point where we're like, wow, is this what a zombie apocalypse would be like? So it's a bit of a challenge, but we're very grateful everyone's healthy, everyone's well. What about you guys? How are you guys doing?
We're good. We're in like week 5 or week 6. We started earlier, so I started to get I started to feel sick with some of the symptoms early on. So I jumped into quarantine a couple weeks before Florida had us start to be a little bit more careful. And so we went stir crazy a little bit. We peaked with the stir craziness before some other people, but it's been good overall. So we're fine. We did our first pickup. We've done delivery for food, but last night was a big date night for us, and we actually went and picked up food at the restaurant. So that's the excitement these days at this point.
Yeah,
but,
if we can get a delivery of what is it, Shipt or Instacart, then we all get very excited. Everyone gather around. What arrived?
Right. The night before, you're just figuring out what to put in the cart. Everybody's getting their say and what they want in. That's exciting. The excitement has changed a little bit. Although I was watching your LinkedIn videos last night regarding what you've been doing, and I got to tell you, to be honest, I was inspired. And it was like, and I don't know if it was because it's late at night or not, but I'm sitting here going, this is exactly what makes America great, and what makes it that people have the innovation and ingenuity to make changes like that and to lead an organization to do something that actually helps out. And so for those that don't know, and a little bit about Kira Labs, they're a cosmetics company that pivoted to do hand sanitizers during this time. And that's really what I want to dive into, David, and talk a little bit about that. But first, before coronavirus, before all this stuff, can you talk a little bit about what Kira Labs did and what was the core business?
Sure. Kira Labs, established in 2003, literally out of my garage. Was working on a few different formulas and different skincare items that became very popular very quickly. And this is going back way before we had viral opportunities in terms of not COVID, but actually I was talking about social media. And I was selling online. I was doing quite well, had some supply issues, became a manufacturer just by self-need, quite frankly. It turned out we were pretty good at it. Because I say we, because there was always employee number one and so on and so forth. I mean, even now, at whatever time in the morning, 6 o'clock, I've got 3 chemists already hitting the factory. And by 11 o'clock, there are still another couple there at night. What we've been doing up until this recent crisis is we were very focused on supporting Walmart, CVS, H-E-B in Texas, and the list goes on, including TJ Maxx. I mean, even Groupon, Amazon, you name it. And what we specialized in was hair, face, and body products. And then we also were doing home products and also some pet products as well. We just started doing our lines of pet shampoo and wash, and which is actually a very different formula to the hair care, by the way, in case you're wondering. It's not the same stuff in every bottle, but there is a lot of love in everyone. So our core motive has always been creating value and doing it with tremendous quality. So it's always quality at a value for us. And we really adopted a few years ago. We moved away from being what's typically a contract manufacturer, which means we stopped making product for other people. We stopped doing private label, and we focused on our own brands only. So we have on our team at our peak, which was not too long ago, we had I think 7 creatives, and we also had 7 chemists, or 8 chemists actually. So we literally had the lab of creating design and ideas from a new product development perspective, from a consumer-facing one. And then we also have our R&D and new product development when it comes to the chemistry. So we're making new formulas and new different products. What we've been known for is bringing a lot of functionality to what's just generally an average product. So our Arga Natural range that's available in Walmart, the first products they took from us were our functional body washes, which are targeted. They include vitamin C or some include retinol. And basically, so what we try to do is focus on effective products. But it's been an interesting journey. Yep.
Yeah, so you got a lot of success. Obviously, I've seen all the awards you've won, whether it's manufacturing awards in the cosmetic industry. I know for one of my companies, and we both won an award here in South Florida together, which was fun to celebrate together a little bit. So you've had a lot of success in that way. When did you all realize, and it's relatively recent, that the business environment was about to change? You know, obviously you probably get and source some of your products from overseas, so you maybe had a little bit of heads up into it or not, but then when did you start to realize going, you know, I might have to make a shift here?
Well, Jeremy, first of all, as an immigrant, I'm always feel like I'm trying to run a little bit harder to stay ahead. You know, you can hear I've got an accent. I've been here 20 years. Very proud American. God bless America. I've got 7 of my 8 children were born here, and I'm very blessed to be here. But
I love when people hear like 7 of your children, because it's always a big conversation point of how many kids you have, because that's not all of them. Just 7 were born here.
Yeah. Well, there's 1 in Australia. Okay, she was very young when we moved.
That's
here.
right. That's right.
She's disappointed because it disqualifies her from ever running for the Supreme Office of President. So I'm like, you'll have to settle, my dear. But in all seriousness, it's a great question you asked. When did I realize? And the reason I brought up the immigrant and a little bit of that paranoia thing that goes on in terms of always wondering what's next, what could be the next problem. Is recently I've got to hand it over to Jim Collins, one of his books I have on the shelf here, Great by Choice, where he talks about the 20-mile march, and that great leadership is always 100% certain something unexpected is going to happen. So you're always certain that something unexpected is going to happen. So if you take on that motto, as soon as the virus started happening in China, we realized we're going to have a problem because we have some factories over there that make a few of the closures, the pumps for the bottles. I should mention that everything we do is made in America. The bottles are made in America. The chemicals are usually sourced in America. But a lot of the closures, the pumps, the caps, the screw-on caps, and so on, they're generally not made in the United States. Hopefully we'll bring that manufacturing back here soon enough. But so when China started shutting down, and we had notification in January when it was the Chinese New Year that things weren't picking up again the way they're supposed to, and our orders were getting pushed back for items that we generally have a supply chain for. We realized we had an issue. We realized that we didn't realize that it was going to hit our shores the way it did. Obviously, no one predicted that. But what we did, we immediately took on measures to, first of all, from a financial security and risk perspective, making sure that we were very tight, so to speak, with how we manage cash flow. But also, when it came to materials, we suddenly filled up our warehouses, pulling in all the material that we had on order with our suppliers, recognizing, well, if there is going to be a problem, let's make sure we create a big buffer of materials that would allow us to keep running in the case that trucking or something like that stopped. That's where it started, I would say.
So, and then as you started to see it migrate to Europe, and then, it started to be relatively clear that it was going to hit our shores, what choices did you start weighing? Because you saw all the closures that were happening in Italy, you saw what was starting to happen in Spain and France, we heard what was happening in Asia. How did you start going through kind of that process to go, well, if it hits here and cosmetics might not be an essential business, how did you start thinking through your shores? Was it a matter of business? Did you see that there was a need? Talk me through a little bit about the process you went to finally deciding to pivot to being a large manufacturer of hand sanitizer.
It is a quick journey, very rapid. I've actually said to a few people over the past few weeks, I feel like I've lived a few years. It really I can see you probably feel the same. Or I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way, quite frankly.
Got a lot more gray yesterday than I typically do. I'm like, where the hell did this come from?
Right. And I was clean shaven yesterday as well. Now look at the beard. I do. In terms of recognizing that we had to pivot, it was a few events that occurred. We always felt that we would be actually an essential supplier because we make a lot of shampoo and soap cleanser, and hand soap, actually liquid hand soap, is an excellent way to actually reduce the chance of the virus of COVID and other bacteria and so on spreading. Everyone talks about sanitizer, which we're grateful for and people should use, but also soap is actually hand washing with soap for 20 seconds. It's less talked about than it was a few weeks ago, but it still is a crucial part of of stopping virus spread. So we always felt we'd be essential. However, we recognized that there may not be as dramatic a need and demand for cleanser, and we already had our R&D, which again we're grateful for our lab team. They had already put together in January a few different formulas, not just hand sanitizer, which quite frankly is a very easy formula, but I would recommend it being made by professionals, because if it's 60+% alcohol, you're dealing with a lot of alcohol, which is highly flammable. A lot of people aren't aware of, I think. So we already have on the books and tested and put together a small supply chain. When I say small, supply chain to support, small production runs, let's say less than 50,000 units at a time, that we already had the ideas of what we would need to pivot to if we had to do that. And really what was the crescendo moment that caused the switch, that snap, was when we had orders from some of our retailers start to be canceled. Retailers that we consider partners, and they still consider us partners, gratefully, that actually called us and said, listen, I got bad news, we're shutting our doors. We haven't announced it to the public yet. And we're like, oh, wow. That was, getting a call from a store with a chain of 1,000+ stores, the retail stores being told that they're going to be shutting their doors indefinitely, and they don't know when they're coming back to work, and everybody's working from home. We realized this is not normal, because they've now canceled our orders that we actually have ready for pickup. And there were other measures coming into place, which made us realize everything stopped overnight.
So what were some of the difficult decisions you had to make, or hard decisions you had to make when you started realizing that, your end user, your distributors that are going to be selling your product, the end retail user, are no longer buying your products? At that point, you start going out as a business owner. Where's the revenue coming from? How am I paying expenses? And you have a big manufacturing plant. There's lots of stuff in there that I know just from looking at the videos on LinkedIn that look like they're expensive, right? So you got a lot of overhead going through and a lot of people that are required to be there to do the work. Talk to me through some of the hard decisions and some of the thoughts you had kind of going through at that time. And obviously it came out to be, I think, one of the good success stories during this time period of a business that was able to really make a difference here in the States, but also, be able to save some workers' jobs, to be able to have some real work to do. Can you talk me through some of those hard decisions?
Sure. Look, we've managed to keep quite a significant amount of staff. Unfortunately, we did have to do reductions early on, and that was clear. We just literally didn't have work to do and had nothing on the horizon of work to do. We were built as an organization that was producing 5 times as much than we had on order, and literally had to take that. The toughest decision was literally going through and having to speak to people, and quite honestly, the phone calls I had to make to and I personally was on the call from many of the individuals that we unfortunately did have to let go. It was a conversation, and there was a genuine understanding that I'm not the type of person that's ever missed a payroll in all my years, and I never will. However, in this circumstance, found myself in a situation where it's impossible to keep an extra 100 people on the payroll when there's no incoming business. What compounded the issue for us, which really made it difficult, was that many of our retailers that we had that basically have we've shipped product to, and they've already probably sold it, they extended their terms overnight with us. So all of a sudden, I would say 90% of our revenue, close to 90% of our revenue that was expected to be coming in over the next 30 to 60 days was put on hold. And what that means is obviously there's a huge cash flow shortage, and that really forced our hands. So we did make the hard decision. At the same time, we also put together a program and information to provide, make sure everybody that we did unfortunately have to make redundant, that had the right information in front of them, that was available. Plus, we continue to support them. We were in terms of reaching out and checking on if they need help and so on. We actually, within the first week, I'm proud to say, a fellow Amazon seller who obviously is now very, very busy, I'm very happy for him, needed staff. I sent him two or three people that we had let go that I knew were great in the distribution area. They've worked out, they're working there now. Another factory that was already doing sanitizers before we had pivoted called me and said, please, can we have any workers? I think we sent over 10 people to them as well. So it's not all, it isn't all doom and gloom, right? It's all about what can we do to help in the future, which is also challenging. So in terms of
what I found though is I found the American workers, at least for the business owners I talked to, really understood and didn't, where, you know, at other times, if you think about when there's been layoffs or even in 08 kind of, where there was some resentment, I found that people are really understanding at this point, and people tend to be caring, although they are not happy with the situation. I think for a lot of business owners, the conversations weren't like you hear about in the past because people understand it's a national crisis. And, you know, I think you're a great example of leadership, that it wasn't about just cut costs, but it was about how do I help these families out. And it's exciting to hear that even after that, you were looking for opportunities for people and create it. It gives a sense of your culture and why you've had the success you had. So I'm going to compliment you on that. Talk through a little bit then about, so then you get through that part, obviously difficult decisions. And now it's, okay, how do I make sure the business continues to succeed? You have some work that's been done in the R&D side in the lab, realizing that you can scale out the hand soap and sanitizer business. What's that look like over the last few weeks?
It's been more of an interesting ride. It's settled down now because putting a new supply chain in place has been also an interesting process. Literally on the weekends, about 2 or 3, I think it was 3 Sundays ago, I'm dealing with people all over the country, just calling them anyway. Hey, do you have any alcohol you could sell us? And we're talking about tanker trucks of alcohol. So it's a large supply, and there is alcohol out there. It's just connecting all the dots in industry that doesn't usually work that way. There aren't that many. We're located in South Florida. There aren't that many providers of the raw material required. And what's interesting as well, I should add, is besides the sanitizer and picking that one up and making that in different sizes now, and we're supplying Miami University Hospital System and many other frontliners, we also are shipping every day a truckload of antimicrobial wash, which is basically soap with antimicrobial properties to it. We're shipping it straight up to New York. We had a very large purchase order come in where we were asked to make basically 500,000 units of soap directly shipping to the Javits Center.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That was also appealing.
So, talk a little bit about advice you might give them. I've been talking to a lot of business owners that are, seeing a need, they want to help. They have, not probably to your scale, but opportunities like you to be able to help on a lot of the necessities that are missing from the front line, such as the hand sanitizer, microbacterial soap is what you just said. So how did you build that supply chain and find people to buy so quick when there's also, even though there's that end buyer, what I found is people are skeptical of frauds right now and people selling stuff that might not be credible to be able to use for the nurses and doctors in the front line too. Any advice you would give people that are either they're a distributor trying to find that end consumer that they're able to get stuff in China, or people that are actually manufacturing like you and being able to find that supply chain and being able to get to sales at the end consumer? Because you figured it out like literally in weeks, where most people can't scale that quick.
I and my team did. We worked together very diligently. We huddle every morning. We push each other. We have very specific priorities that we're all working on. So it's kind of like the fundamentals in place. Just like if you're training for a race, you've got to do the training, you've got to do the fundamentals, you've got to eat right, you've got to sleep right, do all that stuff. We're doing a lot of the traditional fundamentals that any management or leadership team should be doing, making it very clear what our goals are and aligning behind them. And how we go forth. I took on for myself personally when this started happening, new initiatives, which was basically deal making. It sounds like glorious, but it's not. It means that basically I'm out there either calling suppliers and researching, especially using LinkedIn, which is a medium that I've been on for quite some time, and has brought in a lot of interest, both from supply chain opportunities as well as demand opportunities for us to sell through. And we've also found ourselves connecting a lot of dots as well, and networking other groups together. So I would say is, number one, you have to be very clear on what you want to do. You have to prioritize what it is you want to achieve, and then go after it by really sitting down and working your way, as we used to say, letting your fingers do the walking in the yellow pages, but literally doing the research. You can call so many different organizations. There's nothing stopping you. And you'd be surprised if you think about it. Call your bank manager and say, hey, who do you know? Call your friends, who do you know? And you'd be surprised very quickly if you take upon yourself, I'm going to call 10 new people a day. After a few days, there's a 6 degree of separation concept really happening, where people will hear what you can do and how you can help. But if you just rely on the usual means of sending an email, hi, I would like to sell such and such, or I would like to do so, it's going to get lost in the melee. There's so much incoming and outgoing information right now. So you really have to get very, I wouldn't say aggressive, but you have to get on the front foot, so to speak. And you can say all you like that you like to get out and go for that run, but you've just got to get out and start running sometimes. And it might be difficult for the first couple of times, but eventually it starts to kick in, and then you start to have a bit of a flywheel effect.
What's interesting what you're saying is, you talked about deal making in the beginning, but then as you described it, you talked about sales, right? It's prospecting, which is finding opportunities on LinkedIn. It's asking for referrals from people you know, and then it's picking up the phone call and not doing a soft email, but really, and use the word aggressive, but being persistent and having a structure, whether it's 10 phone calls a day or whatever it is. And oftentimes when people ask me out of college for career advice, I tell them to get a sales job, because no matter where you go, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, a CEO of a large manufacturing company, at some point, you're going to have to sell opportunities or sell products. And even at an executive level, you're a perfect example right now where in the midst of a crisis, you had to be able to go create opportunities. And so that's not an easy thing for people to do. And I found that the executives that are rolling up their sleeves and doing the work like you are the ones that are starting to succeed in this time. I've also found this, what I'm sharing with a lot of the business owners that work with me in my companies, is that you have to do double the work to hopefully make the same amount of money you made beforehand, or even a little bit less. But you can't just put your head in. So how have you been able to stay focused where a lot of business owners, I think, went on the defensive and are just trying to hoard cash, cut costs, and not think about growth? You've been able to really create a new opportunity, and along with that, bring a lot of people with you. Because when I watch those videos, I'm sitting here going, man, if I worked for you, I would follow you all the way into hell, just literally just by your excitement and your way that you're positioning the opportunity to be able to help out the front line, which is, I thought, for those that are listening, I'd go check out the videos on LinkedIn. It was pretty cool to see. How'd you keep focused, and how are you keeping that culture going during a time where people are a little nervous about being at work and being at home, and not being at home and being close to people?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm very lucky with the team. I mean, a lot of the people that you'll see that are at our facilities, some of them have been here for less than a year, and some have been there they're coming on 8-9 years, and they've been through it. I think there's a tremendous amount of pride that they all take in the work that they do, the quality that we strive for. We've won quite a few awards over the past couple of years for manufacturing specifically as well, not just entrepreneurship. and they take pride in being part of a facility that's running the way it does, where it's a safe environment. We've been handing out extra sanitizers for everyone to take home. We've been handing out extra masks for everyone to take home as well, for their family, to protect them. But in terms of keeping everybody on the same page, I really overly communicate. I go into the factory. I don't just work remotely right now. And what I do is, you've probably seen it, I think I might wear like 5 or 6 hairnets to cover up the beard, the hair, as well as the masks and everything. But I do I love doing the Zoom town hall. But what I do is, I don't do it from my remote location. I do it from the factory shop floor. And I've been following the lean methodology for many years, and I try to engage, and I do on a regular basis, everybody that works on the shop floor, on the factory floor, whether it's production, compounding, the lab, distribution. Besides doing a Zoom, with everybody that's working in the office environments right now, I also like to get in there and overly communicate what's happening, what we're doing, where we're going, how everyone's crucial. The one that I did 3 days ago, made sure that we went through a few different departments, and I wanted to call out one person individually from each department, from every area, and they just got that town hall clap, where everybody's clapping them for their achievement, and everybody's aware that person, for the achievement they're getting called out for, it's like a real achievement that really is impactful, and it's that appreciation. It's not just when this whole crisis began, we had a massive family celebration that was cancelled. So what did I do? I took all the food into the factory and set it up as a big smorgasbord, so to speak, a buffet, and served everybody. And even today, I know they're ordering in food for everybody all the time. So it's those little things, just to say thank you, I appreciate the work that you're doing, really has that big impact. And likewise goes for people that aren't necessarily on the front lines working in the factory right now, but maybe in the accounting department or the purchasing department, for example, which are working really 24/7 because there's international timeframes they're working with. Just recognizing, hey, how are you? How are you doing? Is there anything I can do to help? But showing them appreciation and overly communicating what the path forward is for the company really gives them a sense of their own ownership and what we're trying to achieve.
So talking to, because you already have people that are in the plant and they're working at this point, but we're starting to have discussions in the country about reopening. And although there hasn't been any decisions, although we're here in Florida and we saw up in Jacksonville, the beaches were packed this weekend. And as a business owner, although we don't know when it's going to open and when we're allowed to kind of get back to normal business, I'm sure you're starting to think about what does that look like? And so you're not just caught off guard where it says all of a sudden Monday, everybody's back to work. Can you talk a little bit about how you're thinking about safety of the employees, how you're thinking about ramping back up where demand might be different? What's kind of some of the filters you're putting through? And you might not have a plan already in place, but can you just talk a little bit about where your head is in thinking about reopening and some of the questions us as business owners might have to ask?
Yes, that was actually a hot topic yesterday in my management meeting, where we were discussing about the future, because obviously we see light at the end of the tunnel. We hopefully are coming through all this. First of all, some of the basics, having the sanitization schedule and program in place is probably crucial. And then protocols as well. So even in, we have them obviously in the factory environment, in the manufacturing environment, with a specific team that cleans down on a daily basis, and different individuals and roles to do that. But we're also implementing that in the office side as well, very strict protocols in terms of it's no longer come in and empty a dustbin or keep your desk straight. Now it's a whole different program in place that we're going to be putting in place. There are a lot of commercial solutions in place for sanitizing in large areas and doing so in a safe way as well. Another thing we're also talking about doing is documenting. Is we've already been, all companies document their processes, but as you know, what often doesn't happen is people don't update their processes. So we're really going back to do a key process mapping project, just to understanding the top 10 processes at a high level and what pans out from that. Because we're saying to ourselves, okay, we'll go back to work, we'll put in a protocol, we'll make sure it's clean and safe in there. We'll rotate on a schedule how many people can be in the offices at one time and maintain distancing. But at the same time, we want to recognize there is a chance that unfortunately some key personnel, and everybody quite frankly is a key personnel, are going to be unwell at some stage. And do we have coverage, COVID, coronavirus or not? Do we have coverage if the head of purchasing is going to not be in the office, or the head of accounts receivable, or the head of project management, or a Salesforce administrator? If they're not available, who is taking it? Where is their cheat sheet of these are the must-do things that need to have happen? So we're also taking account of, let's make sure we've got everybody safe and put everybody remote in the office environment. Let's make sure we have an operational cheat sheet. So we're focusing on making sure we have a protocol in place and a schedule to keep everybody safe. And at the same time, also what would happen in the event, which I think is something that every company should do anyway, is making sure that you have a cross-training and crossover.
Yeah, I think, so what I hear is, first filter is safety. How do you ensure the safety of your workers, kind of going through and putting the protocols, and really, hopefully the states and the governments will give us a sense of what that is. But I think it's up to us as executives and business owners to really take that matter into our own hands with as much education as we can have to be able to figure out what those protocols are. And then the second part, which again, every company should have, but redundant systems and process mapping. So that, and I like what you said, there's a checklist of just kind of everything that person does that somebody else can plug and play in. With the reality is this virus will be with us for the next couple of years till a vaccine comes, and people will get sick. We don't want to be stuck where there isn't the business at that point isn't rolling to keep the payroll going and keep the revenue going. And so, I think one of the parts I found interesting in the last month or so is without travel, without the social meetings, we're able to do a lot more work as knowledge workers and executives, meaning that we want to have all that process mapping for a long time, or very clear roles, very clear responsibilities, very clear accountability, and how somebody describes what a successful week is. Yet we are so busy doing a lot of the other stuff that we've never really put that to the level that I think we've all felt comfortable with. And I think this is a time where it's not only a good practice, it's actually something that is extremely important for a business to have. And I think it's great advice. Awesome. Well, David, I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for the service you're doing for the country. Honestly, it's inspiring, and we appreciate it. And congratulations on the pivot. And we look forward to having you back on to talk more about your successes and your learnings you've had as an entrepreneur and building up this business from your garage to the big manufacturing plant you have right now. For those that want to find David, you can find him at Kira Labs online. It's kiralabs.com, right? Or check him out on LinkedIn. It's a good follow if for any executive and business owner, especially in the manufacturing space, to be able to follow David. And any last advice or ideas for any of the listeners?
I think you've summed it up. I really appreciate the opportunity, and looking forward to many more conversations.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Thank you for watching the Upreneur podcast, and don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and share this with anybody who you think needs to hear it.